Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and welcome to the Breaking News. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and support us on Patreon, link in the description below. Today we have gotten breaking news from inside the Russian Federation, as we have heard that the largest security breach in the history of any state, including the Russian Empire, the Soviet Union, or the modern-day Russian Federation, has just occurred, as over 2 million documents disclosing and speaking of the details of Russia's most secure and secretive nuclear facilities has been uncovered online. Large amounts of these have been going into base plans and even go into as much details explaining the wall posters found inside of the facilities, as well as their security features and other systems such as anything IT related. It appears that this is a major exposure of the Russians' top nuclear abilities and may be greatly detracting from their ability to operate their nuclear arsenal at any given point in the future, as they will most likely have to rebuild these facilities in new locations at extreme expense. Meanwhile, we have also been able to hear that the state of Ukraine has hit two major targets in the Moscow region overnight, as a cruise missile production facility in the area of Leningrad has been hit and destroyed, along with a drone manufacturing facility inside of Dubna, also within the Moscow Oblast as well. We have also been able to see that in the meantime, while a major classified security breach has just been uncovered, as well as Ukrainian drones slamming down onto key targets throughout the area of Moscow that are a part of producing production and equipment for the war effort, another exodus of Russian government aircraft has been seen from the city of Moscow, with a large amount of these aircraft once more flying eastbound towards the area of Yekaterinburg and Chelyabinsk. Meanwhile, the Ukrainians have also hit a Russian headquarters inside of the area of Bakhmut. We believe that it is a brigade-level headquarters at this moment, which may knock off one of the brigades in the Chasiv Yar battle at this moment for at least a couple of days while they get the other headquarters up and running. We have also been able to hear inside of Turkey that the Russian Federation is now preparing to go into a second round of talks with the Ukrainians in Istanbul, as they are claiming that this time they really mean business. We have also been able to hear that there is a supposed list of demands, although we do believe that the real demands that we'll be hearing on June 2nd will most likely be entirely unrealistic once more. And meanwhile, inside of Sana'a in western Yemen, we have been able to hear that the Israelis have continued airstrikes against the Yemeni Houthis within that region. We have a massive amount of news to cover today, and moving on into our largest piece of news that we have been able to hear over the course of 24 hours, it is the news that just came out from Der Spiegel, which is a German newspaper which has made public that a Russian nuclear weapons infrastructure, facilities, plans, and also data have been exposed online. According to Danwatch and Der Spiegel, they uncovered the blueprints, layouts, and internal systems of Russia's most sensitive nuclear missile sites, including Avangard-equipped silos via leaked procurement documents. In short, how it largely happened is that Der Spiegel did not go into the Russian database and hack into the mainframe and then suck out all of these 2 million documents of information. Apparently, what was happening is that Russian contractors who were actually given access to this information and are working on these facilities accidentally published them through an unsecure link online, which actually allowed for a specific kind of a person to be able to get access to them and then release them to the Der Spiegel newspaper in Germany, which now has complete access to the information that is now housed within the documents. To get you all a little bit more information, Next has been able to put out the most comprehensive layout or details of what these documents entail, as European journalists from Danwatch and Der Spiegel have obtained access to a massive trove of 2 million documents detailing Russia's strategic nuclear facilities. Among them are detailed blueprints of the ultra-secret base in Yasny, where the Avangard missiles are currently stationed, including everything from toilet locations and tunnel maps to security systems and surveillance cameras. Many people have heard the name of the Avangard a decent amount here, at least in this news coverage. The Avangard is supposedly one of Russia's newest and most advanced weapon systems, a hypersonic glide vehicle that can deploy a MIRV, and it has the payload of a normal intercontinental ballistic missile, meaning that it would be fairly difficult, at least in theory, to be able to try and ever intercept one of these missiles that the Russian Federation currently has access to. A decent amount of these missiles are based at the Yasny facility, and from what we are understanding, the data leak largely surrounded the ultra-secret security facility at Yasny that operates the Avangard missiles. This is something that is going to be a fairly big issue for the Russian Federation, because what was leaked in the process of these documents was building plans, tunnel diagrams, IT systems, security layouts, and even alarm schematics. This is quite a large amount of sensitive information that would be kept top secret, because while the facility is secure, being able to have exact access to all of these plans allows for folks like the people here in the CIA to be able to look over the plans and to be able to figure out exactly what kind of weaknesses are possessed within these buildings and how to overcome each and every single system, pretty much one at a time, until they're able to make it into the facility and cause a severe amount of damage. Even the amount of information that this went into beyond that was very bizarre, as it listed off the amount of sports equipment and what types, including the wall posters and the soldiers' leisure activities inside of the facility. This is most likely put out as a part of the procurement process done by these individual contractors, because a lot of these contractors are going to have to find and deliver all of these sorts of creature comforts to the soldiers inside, which also gives at least the outer world here in the West, a decent amount of information on exactly what kind of creature comforts are these Russian soldiers using the most, and where there may be a weak point or a vulnerability found within these as well. And it also appears that there has been critical information revealing structural vulnerabilities released in this as well, as the Russians may be trying to shore up some of these security gaps, but may have not been able to for years or decades up to this point, and it's now being given pretty much ad hoc for free to the entirety of the public out here. This appears to be the largest intelligence leak in the history of the Russian military. Any foreign intelligence service now has enough material to pinpoint weak spots. Toilets, motion sensors, tunnel routes, gym equipment. Journalists now have CIA level access, and that's actually not a stretch. This is actually better than CIA level access, because from what we understand, at least publicly, and of course this could be way off, the CIA did not have access to this kind of depth of information on the facility yet. But it is a security disaster that the Kremlin will not be able to cover up. The fallout could force Russia to rebuild part of its nuclear infrastructure from scratch, potentially costing billions of dollars. And we do have to remember right now that the Russian economy is hardly hanging on. The Russian government hardly has any funds left, so billions of dollars of cost to rebuild one of these facilities is pretty much next to impossible at this moment. They don't even have the money to spare. But the leak did occur via state procurement tenders, where contractors accidentally posted classified files online, and the Russian Ministry of Defense has so far not commented on this breach. It is the largest security breach that has ever been seen, as a matter of fact, in the entirety of the Russian Federation, the Soviet Union, or the Russian Empire's history. So far, no amount of information such as this has come out pretty much outlining the exact weaknesses and Achilles heel of every single system that is involved in the Russian nuclear arsenal, or at least a significant number of them. And not only that, the ones surrounding some of their most advanced weapon systems, like the Avangard ICBM. It is an absolutely insane thing to see something like this, and it is something that we are probably not going to be living down anytime soon. While North Korea lives with the major embarrassment of pretty much sinking their Hochon destroyer while it was being launched on the spillway, it appears that the Russian Federation is now dealing with the biggest embarrassment that has been seen in history so far, with the leak of 2 million documents, exposing pretty much everything about these bases, including one soldier scratching their butt at the Avangard missile facility in Yasny. But moving on from that and into some more major news that we've been able to hear over the course of the day, we have also been able to hear that Ukrainian drone attacks have once again attacked the Moscow area, and this time to great effect. We have been able to hear that 2 major facilities, a cruise missile production facility and a drone production facility, have both been hit and suffered serious damage from Ukrainian drone attacks overnight. It does appear, moving into Dubna first, that Dubna has taken some incredibly significant hits. We were first able to get a clip showing us the Ukrainian drone coming in towards the factory at Dubna and then going into its last dive, coming down right on top of the facility and exploding. We were then able to see footage later confirming that the facility had taken a direct hit, as smoke was billowing from the opening on top of the facility, and appears to be showing us that the insides of the machinery and production halls may have taken significant damage. Moving us into the actual clip, showing us an up close of the building. Here it is right here. We can see that the roof of the building has a large amount of smoke billowing out, most likely from the opening created by the drone's explosion, which is giving us a fairly clear indicator that, at least at this moment, this facility is suffering an extreme amount of damage, at least within this area of the assembly hall. Drones, much like any other modern industrial product, are produced on site at an assembly line, and these drones will have to be able to have a continuous assembly line to be able to be produced properly. With the knocking out of a single workstation or several workstations within this building. This means that the Russian drone facility here at Dubna has been completely knocked out, at least for now, until repairs can be effected, and drone production numbers in the Russian Federation may drop drastically for the short term as a result of this Ukrainian attack. As far as this is concerned, this is a massive success. The Russian Federation is largely leaning on drones such as the Shahed or the Russian license-produced variant, the Garon 2, to be able to attack the state of Ukraine in practically nightly attacks at this point, consisting of nearly 100 drones or more every single time. With the knocking out of a significant facility like the one at Dubna, we may see that Russian numbers of drones on a daily production level begin to decrease, and as a result, the Russians may try to decrease their usage of drones against Ukraine in upcoming air attacks for around the next week or several weeks as they repair the Dubna facility, so that way they can conserve the amount of drones that they have available and make sure that they're not starting to run dry while they're waiting for the Dubna facility to repair. Every single military in the world does not exhaust their ammunition stores absolutely. There usually is some sort of a minimum reserve where they will stop the consumption of ammunition or start to ration the consumption before they reach that point. So if we were to say that the Russians have about 500 to 800 drones in reserve right now, and they wanted to expend them down to about 500, that means they have about 300 drones right now to expend over the next 3 weeks while the Dubna facility is being repaired, meaning that based off of the current usage rates of Russian drones, they would be decreasing their drone usage by around 30% over these next few weeks, meaning the Ukrainian air defense is going to have to deal with smaller attacks over the next few weeks, which will make them a lot easier to handle and deal with, and of course mitigate the damage to the state of Ukraine, its critical industry, and war infrastructure over the next few coming weeks, at least at a minimum. Meanwhile, within the area of Leningrad, quite literally within the city of Moscow, it is in the Moscow Ring Road area, we were able to see that a cruise missile production facility has also been hit and has also suffered significant damage within this area of Moscow. This one is actually incredibly close to Moscow's largest airport, the Sheremetyevo Alexander S. Pushkin International Airport, which is largely operated as the hub of Aeroflot Airlines. This area right over here was the one that came under direct attack. And from what we are assuming, it appears that the cruise missile production facility is somewhere within these industrial parks that are on the northern side of the city. Beyond that, we were able to see the Russian missile production facility was directly hit, according to an SBU official, and as the minutes passed, we were able to see direct video and picture evidence confirming the impacts onto the technical facility that produces these missiles. And we can see the smoke rising from the facility right here, once again showing us direct hits have been made by the Ukrainians onto the production halls. We can also see another explosion there being caused by another Ukrainian impact. And getting us a closer up view here really quickly of this facility, we also got to see the fires raging at the missile production facility right here, the secondary fires that were created that are starting to burn around the factory, which we can see right here. When you see a fire burning at the opening or the main offices of the building. But we can confirm that additional drones also did hit not only the main offices and the opening of the facility, but the production halls themselves. We can also see visible damage to the building right there. These sorts of hits by the state of Ukraine, at least at the moment against the Russian Federation, are incredibly significant, considering that a large amount of the war has moved into a war of attrition. To explain the current warfighting atmosphere or environment that the Ukrainians and Russians are living in, at this point in time, it is impossible for either side to conduct any major sweeping offensive actions where they're able to gain massive victories on the battlefield with practically little expense. The Russian Federation and the state of Ukraine are stuck in a pretty much peer-on-peer battle on the front lines, and it is impossible for the Russian Federation to make really any gains at all, and if they attempt any offensives, it largely results in significant casualties. For the Ukrainians, on the other hand, it is pretty much impossible for them to do the very same thing, and to also try and conduct any offensives without taking significant casualties and taking very little to no ground. With this in mind, both sides are starting to understand that the main way that this war will be fought and won is not on the grounds of Ukraine and Russia, but over the skies of the two countries, as the Ukrainians and Russians are attempting to build up large drone fleets to attack each other with pretty much daily at this point to try and destroy as much war industry and critical infrastructure as they can. By destroying war industry and critical infrastructure, they are either able to stop the other nation from having the means to fight a war, or they are stopping them from having the money or ability to even transport equipment to the front lines to keep the war running in that way. Either way, that is really the end of the war, or the way that the war will be ended in the long run. And both countries have been pretty much shooting for each other and trying to hit these critical infrastructure and war production facilities as much as they possibly can. And so far, interestingly enough, the Ukrainians are actually having the upper hand still on that side of things. The Ukrainians have a pretty heavy air defense, especially against smaller kamikaze drones like the Garan 2, which is a license-built version of the Shahed 136 from the Islamic Republic of Iran, while on the other hand, the Russian Federation has incredibly weak air defense in most places, except within the very inner areas of Moscow, or the inner ring roads. With this in mind, the state of Ukraine is able to usually land more effective hits and cause more significant damage to the Russian Federation, and therefore they are actually getting the upper hand on the war, at least at this moment. With the United States now appearing that they may be re-entering the war in Ukraine on the side of Ukraine and providing them with more military support and monetary support to be able to keep the war running for them, it appears that the Russian attacks against Ukraine may have far less effect than originally anticipated, as while Ukraine's war industry could hypothetically be entirely wiped out if the Russians were somehow able to succeed, the Ukrainians will still be able to rely largely on foreign support from the West to be able to pretty much supplant their own war industry and to keep the war going, even if Ukraine's war industry has been literally seared to a crisp. On the other hand, the Russians do not have such an luxury, nor can they be afforded one. The People's Republic of China is providing them absolutely no lethal support and only non-lethal support, and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea's production the capacity is quite low. They are generally providing the Russian Federation with ammunition that they've been stockpiling for decades, meaning that North Korean ammunition and any kind of weapons production is fairly low on a year-to-year basis, but it appears to be quite large because North Korea is emptying out 40 years worth of stockpiles to try and give the Russian Federation enough ammunition to work with. Meaning that once the North Koreans, which are really the only arms supplier to Russia at this moment, run out of ammunition, the Russians are absolutely spent at that point. On the other hand, the Ukrainians have a very robust economy that they are working with, which is the combined economies of the West, which have an unlimited amount of wealth compared to the Russian Federation, North Korea, or China, and not only that, an unlimited amount of war production, as it can keep going endlessly, unlike the small trickle of annual production that the North Koreans are able to ensure, meaning that eventually the ammunition disparity will be stabilized and the Russians will end up finding themselves, after the stabilization, on the short end of the stick, with the Ukrainians most likely being able to outgun them artillery-wise in most battles. Beyond that, however, it does appear that significant damage has been caused. And another interesting thing has happened once again today inside of Moscow, as there's been another exodus of Russian government aircraft from the city of Moscow. You can actually see all of them right here. Apparently, according to OSINT Technical, there was one Tu-214, two Tu-154Bs, three IL-76MDs, one Tu-152, and a one Tu-134 that was involved in this exodus that just happened around 10 hours ago. At the moment, we once again do not know why all of these Russian aircraft are conducting such a rapid exodus from the city of Moscow. It was supposed on the channel many days ago when we saw the first one that it appeared to have been an attempt at creating a continuity of government operation within the area of Yekaterinburg and Chelyabinsk, and specifically around the Yamanets facility under the Yamanets mountain. It is possible that this could be a continuation of such operations, as we are now seeing government personnel leaving the capital in waves. Some people would like to suppose that this may be the beginning of a coup, or possibly government personnel attempting to leave the area of Moscow to stage a coup in the periphery and then return back to Moscow. Both of these options are highly unlikely. It does appear that these government personnel are being brought out in coordinated waves into the area of the Ural Mountains, most likely near to the Yamanets facility, to be able to prepare for continuity of government operations. Considering the deteriorating relations between the United States and the Russian Federation currently, and the continuing increase of escalations across the whole of Europe as the Russians become far more volatile as their economic and military situation becomes worse off, it is highly likely at this point that the Russian Federation may be preparing for continuity of government operations in the advent of a national emergency, or in the advent of a first strike, where a large amount of Russia's command and leadership abilities are completely wiped out within that opening hour, or opening several hours. This is something that we need to keep an eye on, and I believe that it is a telltale sign that, at least on the Russian Russian Federation's in, they are expecting to either take rash actions or decisions or create a situation where other countries will be taking rash actions against them. Pretty much in short, either the Russian Federation is preparing on starting something and then expecting a very bad response from the West, or they are planning on seeing that in some way, shape, or form, another country like the United States starts to do incredibly wild things, and then they respond in a very unpredictable way that could lead to disastrous results. Pretty much, they're trying to get ready for something bad, possibly coming down the line. Beyond that, however, in the front lines of Ukraine, we also did get to hear that apparently a brigade level headquarters may have been knocked out in Bakhmut today by French hammers, which we can see in this clip right here. French hammers are the AASM 250s, which have been used significantly by the armed forces of Ukraine and have been provided in large numbers by the Republic of France for around the entirety of a year at this point. The state of Ukraine has continued to use these to great effect throughout the entirety of the front lines, especially in the Kursk Oblast, but today we did get to see the Ukrainians knocked out a Russian brigade-level headquarters within the area of Bakhmut as they are continuing to defend against the Russian offensive that is targeting Chasiv Yar. The Russian Federation is still pretending, however, through all of this, that they actually do want a peace, and we were able to hear that Sergei Lavrov came out again today and said that there will be a new round of talks that begins on June 2nd in Istanbul. Here is the horse, and I will allow him to talk to all of you.
Как известно, при поддержке Соединенных Штатов, Саудовской Аравии, Турции удалось создать условия для возобновления прямых российско-украинских переговоров. Первый после возобновления раунд состоялся 16 мая в Стамбуле. В соответствии с достигнутыми там договоренностями был осуществлен обмен пленными в формате 1000 на 1000 человек. Тогда же в Стамбуле было условлено о том, что Москва и Киев подготовят документы, излагающие позицию каждой из сторон для достижения устойчивого урегулирования. Российская сторона, как и договаривались, оперативно разработала соответствующий меморандум, который излагает нашу позицию по всем аспектам надежного преодоления первопричин кризиса. Наша делегация во главе с Владимиром Мединским готова представить этот меморандум делегации Украины и дать необходимые пояснения в ходе второго раунда возобновленных прямых переговоров в Стамбуле в ближайший понедельник, 2 июня. Хотел бы вновь выразить признательность турецким партнерам за предоставление гостеприимной турецкой площадки, как вчера подтвердил в ходе своего визита в Москву министр иностранных дел Турции Хакан Фидан. Рассчитываем, что все, кто искренне, а не на словах, заинтересован в успехе мирного процесса, поддержат проведение нового раунда стамбульских прямых российско-украинских переговоров.
We expect that these talks are going to be going absolutely nowhere. We already saw that the prior talks that occurred in mid-May went literally nowhere, as the Russian Federation pretty much came in with even more insane demands than they had already been making in the past, then claiming the areas of Chernihiv, Sumy, Kharkiv, Dnipropetrovsk, Mykolaiv, and the Odessa Oblasts, along with the ones that they currently partly control in Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, Luhansk, and Crimea, pretty much demanding half of the state of Ukraine and also demanding that the Ukrainian government immediately holds elections without further delay so that we can pretty much be installed as a Russian puppet regime from the outset. This is something that we largely assume is going to be happening a second time. There has been beliefs that there is going to be a different sort of an approach to these talks, as Putin is preparing to demand a formal written promise from the West that NATO will not expand eastward, according to Reuters, and among Russia's other demands in neutral Ukraine, the lifting of sanctions and the unfreezing of Russian assets and protection for Russian-speaking Ukrainians. It appears that there is quite a lot, at least to this moment, that is assumed that the Russians will be demanding, but we also believe that they'll be demanding far more, like they did in the last round of talks. The Russians never really operate on a sincere diplomatic level at this point. They are usually very insincere and untrustworthy with their actions and demands. We were able to see that the last time that these talks were conducted, and so the new talks on June 2nd, we are not expecting will be going anywhere. We have also been able to hear that Zelensky is even saying that he is believing that new sanctions can be rolled forward against Russia in mid-2026, showing that Zelensky is even believing at this point that the war is going to continue on well into the next year, at least a year from now. Meanwhile, inside the Middle East, we were able to confirm that the Israeli Defense Forces have destroyed the Sana'a airport for the second time in a month, according to Houthi militants, as the Israelis continue to view the Yemeni Houthis as a hostile and belligerent force dangerous to the state of Israel, with the Houthis continuing to conduct over that past month cruise missile and ballistic missile attacks against the state of Israel, which has had to defend against. While this is the only news inside the Middle East, it is a part of a larger overarching story, which we've been covering on the channel, as the United States and Israel battle with the idea, or at least the thought, of eventually conducting a strike against Iran and its nuclear production and development facilities. That battle is still ongoing in the diplomatic rooms in the background right now, and we do not know whether or not the Israelis are going to end up striking the Islamic Republic of Iran, or if the U.S. is going to end up creating a deal with the Islamic Republic of Iran about denuclearization. Either way, it's currently unknown at the moment, and we are trying to follow that story as much as we can, and as soon as we get any significant updates, we'll be making sure to include them either in our nightly stream or in another short war video coming on out in the future. But with that, that is all of the news that we have today. I've got to thank each and every one of y'all so much once again for watching, and if y'all have enjoyed, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and support us on Patreon, link in the description below. We have to give a huge thanks to all of the folks who are supporting us on Patreon right now, because their support is helping this channel to keep on being possible and for us to keep on putting out the news. If you've also made it to this point in the video, I want to make sure that all of y'all put a little something in the comments section below that I think would be pretty fun. Make sure to put down in the comments section below, if you made it to this point in the video, Avangard. That is spelled Avangard. That is Alpha Victor Alpha November Golf Alpha Romeo Delta. Avangard. Put that in the comment section below to let us know that you made it to this point in the video, because I don't think that we'll ever see a security breach like that one again. This truly is history in the making right here, and this will probably be remembered as one of the worst data breaches or security breaches in international history, really in world history up until this point. A very interesting time to be able to cover the news for all of y'all, and once again, I'm entirely honored and appreciative that we were able to be the one here on the Enforcer channel to break the news to all of y'all. But nevertheless, a big thanks to all of you once again for watching, and we will see you all in the next one.